But I feel like the main reason why a lot of women just aren't into the idea of dating a bisexual guy comes down to a couple of reasons, and some of them aren't even what you might think as a guy. So, like, I'm sure one of the ones that people would talk about is the fact that
the royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who might find it hard to breathe if you've got that asthma. He's also a man who does include running his mouth to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. And I am here because I need to clear the air on some things, and for the first time, I'm defending both genders. Yep, that's exactly what I'm gonna be doing on this episode. I will be defending both genders, but unfortunately one of the genders is still going to take a couple of hits. What am I talking about? I do intend on getting to that in a bit, because I have got a case of a woman that is attacking other women and I need to stand up for those women. And I've got another case where there is a woman who seems to be trying to explain the reasoning behind something that some women do, and I need to refute that explanation because I think it sounds like a large pile of shit. And with the great power that I have, I do believe that I have the great responsibility of at least trying to set the record straight, because some of the stuff that is being said online is just absolute garbage. But you can't know for sure if it is garbage or not up until you get to that point, of which that is the main topic. And once you figure out whether it's garbage or not, whether you agree with it, whether you don't, you can always hit me up in the DMs, because the social media is there and the DMs are always open. So should you like it, should you dislike it, should you agree, should you disagree, should you have a different form of feedback, or should you want to suggest a potential topic and or guest for the podcast, then the DMs are always open. My social media is usually in the links in the description. And should you feel like that's too much work, you can obviously listen all the way till the end of the episode, where I usually mention the social media there. But all in all, I do thank you so much for listening, and I hope you listen all the way till the end of the episode. Now, with that said, I do need to get into what it is that I plan to discuss this time. Although before I do that, just a quick reminder from episode 705, it'll be shorter for about 3 weeks. So that's, about 6 episodes of short, under 20-minute episodes, where I basically choose one topic and I get to talk about it. It's less editing, no instrumentals. And it's usually the proof that I use to say that I'm on break and I had this content that was planned for you. So if there's anything that you would want me to discuss, this is your chance to send it in, and I might just talk about it on any of those episodes when I am on break. And so with that said, I need to move things on back to the present, and I want to start by talking about a lady that I handled not too long ago who goes by the name of Oloni. Now, for those of y'all that might not know too much about Oloni wrote a book called The Big O. She's a bit of an influencer online. I guess she has a podcast as well. And I've refuted a lot of the stuff that I hear her talk about on whatever platforms, whether it's IG, whether it's on another podcast. But, it's stuff that she believes is true, so she's going to continue saying it. And a pretty good example is the bit that I covered about 2-3 episodes ago, where she was talking about how apparently she believes that most men who claim to be into CNC or consensual non-consent are just, grapists in disguise or some shit like that. And I refuted that and I said, you know what, I think most guys are kind of just trying to find their way, and some of them do like those kinks, they just don't know the best way to practice them. But, that was then. Now this time she decided to attack the straight women. And she believes that straight women who aren't into bi guys are homophobic. Now, I don't want to get into my thoughts on it already because I need to let the clip play, then I can get into my thoughts on it. So, without further ado...
A lot of you are lying to yourselves. The only reason why a cis-hetero woman would not want to be with a man who is bisexual is down to homophobia. Like, let's be real. Let's call a spade, okay? At the end of the day, who's going to beat you? It's your emotions, it's your love, it's your vagina at the end of the day. But when we unpack it all, straight women are notoriously homophobic. No different to straight men. And to deny it is just so disingenuous. At the very least, hold your lips and be quiet. Because at the end of the day, again, who is actually going to beat you? But to come on here and say that it's not down to homophobia, then what is it? What is it? You people come on here and say, it's my preference, I've done this before. Where does your preference come from? You weren't born with your preference, for goodness sake. If you were born into a society that wasn't notoriously homophobic, you wouldn't give a shit if a man was bisexual or not, because you'd understand that sexuality is a spectrum and men and women can be absolutely fluid. But because we live in a society that demonizes gay men, it's not exactly the first option that cis hetero women run to when it comes to thinking about, the love of their life.
Okay. This is gonna be very interesting to start, because I'm gonna use the exact same line that she used on, cis hetero women or straight women on her. A lot of what she's saying is her lying to herself. Straight women can actually choose to not want to date bisexual men, not because of homophobia, but simply because they have a preference that could be tied to them not wanting to deal with a bisexual man. And apparently it's actually a thing. And I'm not saying that it is the case for every single straight woman or for most of them even. Like, some of them just wouldn't want to date a bisexual guy. Now, of course, there are the ones who are homophobic, but truth of the matter is, like, if it's a babe who has gay friends or bisexual friends, and she says that she doesn't have a preference for bisexual men, it's perfectly warranted for her to say so. It doesn't necessarily mean that she is homophobic. And hell, even if she is, that's entirely on her. That's her thing. So if she's not feeling it, it's not like it's your choice to change her. Like, I find it particularly interesting whenever, quote unquote, woke people come out and they're like, oh, you being homophobic is bad. If they just don't like it, or if they're afraid of interacting with some of those people, I think it's a personal thing and it's a them issue. When it's on a systemic level, that's when it's like a problem. But on a personal level, like, that's just a you thing for the most part. But then again, who am I to talk about it? I'm a Kenyan in Kenya and I'm black, so it's not like I will say that I know much about racism or homophobia, because I'm a straight man. So this one, I guess maybe I could be underqualified to talk about. But I'm not gonna lie, and I know I'm not a woman, but I'm just gonna say this. I can get why they wouldn't want to date a bisexual guy, because deep down, I feel like the issues that they are trying to avoid basically connect with their liking of straight men. Because and I kind of just want to let the secret out, like, for the most part, women are actually more homophobic than men, or at least straight women are more homophobic than straight men. And like, there's a comedic piece on this that I guess has been repeated a bunch of times, where someone talks about how if you're on a date with a girl and you're a guy and she says that she's kissed a girl before, you kind of look at it and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then you kind of continue moving. Your attraction towards her doesn't really change. But if you are on a date with a woman and you're a guy, and then you say that you kissed a man before, suddenly it kind of switches things around. Or if you say that you've been involved sexually with a guy, it kind of turns things around and it can turn them off, yada yada yada. And I'm gonna speak speculatively about this, and for the women that listen to this podcast, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I know exactly why. And it's one of those ones where it's like, it's not mentioned about as much, but it's the truth. But I feel like the main reason why a lot of women just aren't into the idea of dating a bisexual guy comes down to a couple of reasons, and some of them aren't even what you might think as a guy. So, like, I'm sure one of the ones that people would talk about is the fact that, because guys tend to sleep around a lot, or a bisexual guy might end up screwing a lot of guys, or she might end up losing the guy to another guy, and that might devastate her quite a bit. Like, people can think through that, and that could be the reason. But personally speaking, I feel like the main reason why straight women do not want a bisexual guy is because deep down they don't want to think about who's doing the bending. Like, if you remember that whole bit with Janet Jackson and Omari Hardwick, like the clip that's gone viral, a bunch of times, where she talks about finding out that he sleeps with men and how he's being bent over by other men. And Omari Hardwick is like, who said that I'm the one who gets bent over? And then she's like, oh, so they're the ones doing the bending. And like, there's something about shaming bottoms in the gay community, and this is something that I've been told by someone who is gay. Like, bottoms are shamed because it's considered less masculine to be bent over, and I feel like for women it kind of translates in roughly about the same way. The fact that your man is kissing another man and is deriving pleasure from being bent over by another man is something that makes them not feel like you're very masculine as a man, and to a pretty huge degree might make you seem like a turn off to quite a number of women. Now, of course, I could be wrong, most likely I am, but I feel like that's probably the biggest part. Like the fact that you might be another guy's bitch, for lack of a better way of saying it. So honestly, I think that could be why, but then again, at the same time, just the thought that your man could cheat on you with another man is something that can drive chills up a lot of women's spines. So I can totally understand the preference for not wanting a bi guy. Like, just the thought and I guess the sight of it isn't something that they're used to, isn't something that they like. And even though they might be okay with it, maybe from a dating level and not necessarily like a long-term partner level. So, granted, at the end of the day, it is their preference, and I could be wrong about everything that I'm saying, but at the end of the day, it's their preference. Why does it have to be such a big deal to you? Why are you trying to make them less homophobic? Shouldn't that be their prerogative and their choice to make? I don't know. Maybe it's just me and I could be wrong, but either way, I'm going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. And this one involves another woman, and interestingly enough, it involves money. Now, we've had these discussions before where people talk about how, when a babe makes more money, they suddenly start to treat the guy that they're with a little bit differently. And a lot of times, you will hear stories of how the babe started making more money than the guy, and she now started being disrespectful towards the guy. And these are stories that we've heard of before, and we've always complained about how whenever a woman makes a bunch of money, suddenly she feels like she doesn't need a man. But whenever a man makes a bunch of money, he feels like either he needs more women or he feels like he needs to do more for his woman. Now, a lady by the name of Jasmine on IG decided to hop on and talk about that on a podcast, and she shared the clip where she was talking about it on IG, and that's what I want us to break down. So I'm going to let the clip play, then I can get into the comments and then my thoughts on it, so that we can break down whether whatever reasons she gives for, this entire thing is actually true, false, or just a massive stack of bullshit. So, without further ado,
people love saying women make money and then stop needing men. No. Women make money and stop tolerating men they had to settle for out of survival. That's the conversation nobody wants to have, because financial independence doesn't make a woman less feminine. It gives her the freedom to choose wisely. Now she can ask, are you actually a good man? Are you capable of leadership? Or did women call you provider because they had no other option? Because when a woman can stand on her own, you are no longer competing with her struggle. You are competing with her peace. Because now if I choose you, it's not because I have to. It's because out of every option available, I still chose you. And if anything, that should make love more meaningful, not less. Because the most powerful kind of love is not love rooted in necessity. It's rooted in choice.
women make money and stop tolerating men that they chose out of survival. Interesting point. Very, very interesting point. I do have thoughts about it, and I am going to tear into that statement in a little bit. But before I can do any of that, let me get to the comments. So the first one that I found came from a woman who said, and I quote, "This, yes, this, I still choose you. How powerful is this? The high quality of men understand this and are not intimidated by this. Carry on now." End quote. And okay, the high quality of men, or at least the high quality men, understand this. I don't really think this is the case. Like, don't get me wrong, I do feel like most men understand that love is a choice to a certain degree. And, even the persuasive ones that'll try to make a babe fall for them understand that it's a matter of flipping that choice to a pretty huge degree. Like, it's not like you lack all choice and you only have to fall in love. That isn't love. That is, kind of like being forced into a situation. But, then again, maybe I could be wrong about that one. Let me move on to the next comment, which says, and I quote, "This is what I've been saying for years. A successful independent woman is not looking for someone to pay her bills. She can do that herself. The real challenge is not competing with her financially. The real challenge is being able to match the life she has built, the standards she has earned, and the peace she has created for herself. Choosing a partner with intention is not being materialistic or calculated. I've learned this the hard way." End quote. And I don't know if I agree with her on this one. Okay, let's see. Not looking for someone to pay her bills. This one is categorically false. There's a lot of women that are making very good money, even more than their partner, but they still expect their partner to pay bills. So this is, mostly bullshit to some degree. But, it's very dependent on the woman, of course. But the real challenge is not competing with her financially. That one I can get. That one I agree. There's a lot of guys who, when they find out that their babe is making more than them, will basically try to one-up them so that they can get back to whatever top spot they feel that they should have had or they should have because they make more money. Which, it's kind of a sad state of affairs in some instances, but it is something that governs a lot of guys. But now the part where she's like, the real challenge is being able to match the life she's built, the standards she's earned, and the peace she has created for herself. Now, that one I consider to be mostly bullshit, because if you're making more money than me and we're dating and you want to upgrade your life, why do you suddenly think that I should be doing the same thing, yet I haven't gone through the same changes and, probably aren't in the same position to make the kinds of upgrades that you want to make? Like, I feel like sometimes there's this arbitrary, almost ambiguous expectation to match up, yet you're not there yet. And these are the same people that will be like, oh, you clap for others up until it's your turn, then people will clap for you. Or they'll say some shit like, oh, when it's your season of growth and, you experience all of these things, then it doesn't mean that everyone else who hasn't gone through it is at a bad point. Everyone has their season, everyone's time is there, and maybe it's just not your time. And this is the same kind of people that usually come and be like, the problem is that you're not being able to match the life that she's built and the standards she's earned. Like, what the fuck? And I see this happen a lot. I'm not saying that this woman has said the exact same thing, but it is something that I notice a lot of times. Like, you can't expect that the guy will upgrade himself just because the babe has upgraded herself, because she has the means to do that. But anyways, let me not make a massive fuss out of this. So on to the next comment, which says, and I quote, "Men don't want partners, they want an assistant." End quote. And I don't see how this comment is particularly relevant to what she's saying, mainly because if I was to use this exact same sentence structure with this exact same thought process, I'd just say that women want a bodyguard that pays for shit, tells her that she's beautiful and has good dick. That's quite literally it. But with that said, let me move on to the last comment, which was made by a man who said, and I quote, "Shame it doesn't work that way. Can't make your fairy tale a reality by pushing fantasy." End quote. And I agree to some degree. I don't know which part he was talking about when he said, you can't make it a reality by pushing fantasy, but I do agree that it doesn't work that way. You don't always have a situation where it's like, oh, she's chosen her peace and it was a case of survival. I think that a lot of times they have a very different thought process which pushes them to that, and then they just try to masquerade it with this whole talk of, oh, now she's found peace, or now she wants you to be a part of her peace, or you're competing with her peace. Because I think the whole peace thing is bullshit, and I'll explain why in a moment. But with that said, I am going to close off the bit with all of the comments and get to my thoughts on it, because when I was listening to this, the first thing that clicked in my mind after she mentioned like the first two phrases was, wait, y'all are doing this for survival? Like y'all were getting with us guys for survival? Like that shit sounds a little bit weird to me, because like that's what it's about now. Because if it was survival, I can understand some instances why you say that it was about survival. Because if someone tells you, oh, you know, I was super broke and I didn't have, you know, any way of making ends meet, and I met this guy and this guy, you know, wanted to give me the world and blah blah blah, like you can understand that one has a bunch of survival that's tied to it. If you find an instance where a babe got married to a guy because the guy has means and, you know, promised to take her siblings as well as herself to school and jack like that and like build a home for them and all, like you can understand the survival bit that's being mentioned there. But a woman that's earning a livable, if not survivable wage, ends up choosing a guy that makes more money than them, and then they start making more money than the guy and they start talking about making that choice based on survival, sounds like a massive fucking cop-out. Because what the fuck do you mean survival? You were surviving before you were with dude. Like, if that guy did not meet you, wouldn't you still be able to feed yourself, clothe yourself, take yourself to work and do, you know, this, that and the other? Like, you could handle your essentials, your needs before dude came along. And not unless you are highly incapable or just not in a position where you could handle your needs, could you make the statement that you ended up being with a guy for the sake of survival. So this entire thing just sounds absolutely shit. But essentially what they are trying to say is that you wanted to be with the guy for the money. Like, there's the whole hypergamy thing, and I know it's not supposed to be looked at as, oh, you know, I just chose to date this guy for money. But when this woman is talking about how, you know, you are doing it out of necessity and for survival and shit like that, that's exactly what it looks like. In as much as it's not the direct for money, it looks a lot more indirect. It exactly looks like that. It sounds like you chose to be with a guy because he had money. And because that money could help you, you chose to be with him. But now you're making more money than him, and whatever it is that he was putting you through wasn't giving you peace, and the relationship itself wasn't a peaceful one, but you stuck around because the guy had money or the guy was taking care of you. So now you're making enough such that you can take care of yourself, and now you want to choose yourself and not whatever it was that you were going through with a guy. That's exactly what it sounds like. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of women do end up dating a guy that makes more than them, and then they make the money, and then now suddenly they start treating the guy some type of way. And if that was the case, then it means that they didn't actually love the guy. So essentially what this woman is trying to say is, a lot of women who have gotten to the point of financial independence and start having issues with the guy or end up leaving the guy only dated the guy because of the fact that he was providing to a certain degree, which is indirectly tied to his resources, thus materialistic, thus money. So essentially, y'all didn't really love the guy that you were with, or the guys that you were with. And so if that's the case, then it wasn't really about love. Y'all were just in the relationship for the benefits. Like, that's exactly what it sounds like. And the truth of the matter is, I know that to some degree you could talk about that, but I know that that's not the exact reason. Whatever the hell it is that this woman is busy feeding and making, you know, seem like it's the good version of this, is basically just a cop-out using survival instead of just acknowledging the truth about why it is that a bunch of you tend to find your guy unattractive or start finding issues with your guy the moment you start making more money. And it's not like it's a truth that is that hard to figure out if you think about it particularly deeply. And the truth of it is, it's not about dating for survival. It's not about, you know, you choosing to love him for him or whatever other bullshit you're trying to throw out there. The truth of it is, you move to a point where you feel like you are an upgraded version of yourself, and you now see yourself as a higher tier individual, And when you look at your man's and the fact that he's still the same, you now start to think of him as a lower tier individual. And thus at that point, you now start getting pissed off because you're like, oh, but this guy doesn't do this. If he was a higher tier individual, he would have been doing A, B, C, or D. And at that point, that's when the lack of respect starts to come in. That's where the issues come in. That's when you suddenly feel like you're either at the same level or you're batting above him. So you can question whatever the hell it is that he does that makes you uncomfortable. Because you feel like you know a little bit more than dude. And instead of acknowledging that, you would much rather come around and talk about how, oh, you know, it's not that he's competing with your struggle, he's competing with your peace. Like, what the fuck is competing with your peace? If you didn't have peace before, the money doesn't give you any more peace after. Maybe peace from handling bills. You know, maybe peace from worrying about where your next meal is coming from, or whether you get to go out on trips, or whatever it is that you can do with money. But for the most part, it doesn't change all that much as far as peace is concerned. And if you think I'm chatting shit about this, look at guys whenever they make more money. You never hear them trying to drop their babes because, oh, you know, I need someone that gives me more peace. Nah, like our peace isn't tied to how much better our babe makes us feel. Our peace is mainly tied to ourselves. And we will usually take personal responsibility for our own peace because our peace is our own and it is a choice that you have. It is a choice that you choose to have in spite of whatever struggles that you have. Or should I say despite whatever struggles that you have. I'm not sure which one of the two I should be using, but you know, one of them. So this whole talk about peace is absolute BS. The truth of the matter is you didn't choose the man, okay? Let's call it what it is. Let's call a spade a spade. You didn't choose the man because you were choosing the man. You chose what he could do for you, and the moment you have gotten to a point where you have surpassed that, or you have gotten to a point where you feel like you can get more or better from elsewhere, you suddenly start looking at this man as a worse off version or a lower tier version from what it is that you feel you deserve. And as such, now you start bringing up all of these arguments about peace and choice and whatever other bullshit you would like to bring up. So let's just conclude by saying this. This explanation is a massive stack of bullshit. You feel you're superior to your man, and instead of putting your ego aside, you would much rather dress it as peace and use it as a way to justify the change in how you treat your man. And while sugarcoating might make it sound good out here, at the end of the day, if you internally do feel this way but try to sugarcoat it, no matter how much delulu you have, it will never make whatever it is that you're doing seem like a great thing to do, because even you know that the reason you're doing it is mainly based on ego and not necessarily a sense of peace. But then again, maybe I could be wrong about this. Maybe I don't understand women. Maybe I'm just chatting a bunch of shit and I'm catching a feeling because I'm a dude. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the breaktime podcast. On X, it is at bagakazd. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.